Hello, I'm Storm Geometeorologist Chris Abear. Today I want to talk about terminology. It seems like every season we hear that a subtropical storm has formed, maybe prior to the start of the season, and maybe a storm becomes extratropical as it tracks north across the cooler waters of the Atlantic. Well, let's take a look at the differences between a tropical system and a subtropical or an extratropical storm system. On the left we have Subtropical Storm Andrea from 2007. On the right, we have Tropical Storm Isaias from 2020. Now, if you look at Andrea, we see a broad open center here with the strongest winds located maybe over 100 miles from the center. No squalls over the center at all. The strongest winds aren't near the center, as would be the case with a tropical storm like Isaias. So Isaias has very strong winds right over the center, heavy squalls right over the center. That's a tropical system. Subtropical storms frequently form from non-tropical features. They don't form from tropical waves that move from Africa through the Caribbean Sea and eventually become subtropical storms. They form from frontal boundaries, typically that move off the southeast U.S. coast or into the Gulf of Mexico. Sometimes a weak low pressure area forms at the end of a cold front, and that low can get stronger and stronger, and it could develop initially into a subtropical storm like Andrea. And then maybe if it sits over the warm Gulf Stream for a long enough period of time, squalls begin to build near the surface, and the subtropical storm can transition to a purely tropical storm with squalls near the center and strongest winds near the center as well. Now, we see about 2 of these subtropical storms or extratropical storms every single season. The graphic here shows from 1970 to 2020 that the storms that were fully subtropical, well, that averages about 2 or 3 per season. Eventually, most subtropical storms that form do transition into fully tropical storms. We can see the case here, about 2 per year develop and eventually transition into fully tropical systems. Now, we had a lull there in the 1990s because during that period of time, the National Hurricane Center Administration did not classify these subtropical storms. But in general, we see about 2 per season that either start out as subtropical and remain subtropical or eventually transition to a fully tropical system. Now, as for extratropical storms, we see that frequently from storms that develop out to sea and head off into the cooler waters of the North Atlantic. A storm will become tropical in the deep tropic, but as it moves over cooler water, the squalls tend to dissipate around the center, the wind field expands significantly under wind shear, and it may be attached to frontal boundaries, as is the case with this former Hurricane Florence here example. These storms frequently are much larger than hurricanes. And this hurricane may be a third the size of one of these extratropical storms as it transitions to an extratropical storm. And so it's very common that it happens out over the open Atlantic when storms move into the cooler waters of the North Atlantic. It doesn't happen very often in the Gulf of Mexico, very rarely, and I haven't seen one transition in the Caribbean Sea. So that's a look at subtropical and extratropical storms. I'm Storm Geometeorologist Chris Abear. Thanks for viewing.